Good evening, Year 11, and welcome to Night News for Maths Paper 1 Foundation. So, what's going to be in this exam? We can't predict anything at this stage, but we do know there are topics that are more likely to come up in a non-calculator than in a calculator paper. So we can say that some of these things are going to be extremely likely. That's fractions, whether that's adding and subtracting, multiplying or dividing, or fractions of amounts, common non-calculator topic, as are decimals. And again, whether that's adding and subtracting, or more specifically, there will be a multiplication or a division in the non-calculator paper. We could also see some estimation, some sort of unit conversions, quite often comes up in the first 5 questions, but could come up later in the paper in context. Any of those algebra skills, simplifying, expanding, factorise, solving, rearranging, indices, all of these things could come up, as could speed, distance, time, money. Talks about fractions of amounts, but we're going to see percentages and ratios, and it could be we combine all 3 of those together. It could be they're separate questions. Could be asked for exact trig values, and we could see, or likely to see, some proportion questions. There are other things we know are less likely, but do come up in non-calculator paper, so we could also see fractions, decimals and percentages and converting between those. Again, expect to see those in the first 5. The nth term of a sequence, other work on sequences, highest common factor and lowest common multiple, angle facts, plotting graphs, and that could be a linear graph or it could be a quadratic graph where we need to fill in those tables, plot those points and draw our lines. We could be asked to write some error intervals, or we could be asked to do a transformation. It could be we're asked to do a translation, an enlargement, a reflection, or it could be we are asked to describe one of them. We could also see probability, standard form, any of our statistical diagrams. We could be asked to do Pythagoras, we could be asked to find area, we could be asked to find angles and polygons, we could have something to do with circles, we could see simultaneous equations, and many more things. And it's really difficult to say what's exactly is going to be in the paper, but what's really important are those numeracy skills and having the fractions and decimals, being able to recall the information we might need. So what are you to do this evening? Well, there are lots of different ways we could revise, and one thing we could do is to look at specific topics, and that could be we use Sparks. If we go onto Sparks, we go to the independent learning section, and we can then search for a topic in the GCSE section that we can use to help us to revise. We could also go to exam queue, make sure we're changing the qualification. Here it says higher currently, we need to change that to foundation. Make sure you select the non-calculator paper, and then again you can search for that specific topic. When you get there, you're going to have the question, but you can then look at the mark scheme to be able to mark your work and see where marks are given. Another place is Maths Genie. When you go to Maths Genie, choose GCSE revision, and on this page you can again then search for lots of different topics that can then help you with your revision, or you can go to another website, Corbett Maths. Again, on here there are lots and lots of options. You can scroll through loads of topics and choose the practice questions. Have a go at doing those, and again, answers and videos are provided. And a fifth thing, which we didn't talk about in the PPEs, is first class maths. And if you go to first class maths, again, you can go to revision, make sure you choose Edexcel, and there will be lots of videos, exam questions and solutions there for all the foundation topics that we might need. So that's looking at specific topics, but it might be you want to do practice papers. And the best place to find practice papers is Maths Genie. Go to Edexcel papers, choose those exam papers, and then have a go at working through them. There are solutions, and you can mark what you have done. Tomorrow morning, as for every exam, the hub is open from 7 AM. Bring some questions you haven't been able to answer. Talked about this a lot in the PPs. Those questions you can't answer are the most important ones. If you can't do them the night before the exam, you're not going to be able to do them if they come up in the exam. And that's the biggest place we can make progress in that morning. The morning is such a valuable time to pick up 1, 2, 3, 5 marks on 5 questions you couldn't do the night before. So bring those in and make sure you're asking questions. We'll line up at 8:25. And then we'll have revision in maths classrooms. So you'll be in your normal maths class with your maths teacher doing the breakfast maths. And we've seen these before. And again, it's looking at this and choosing a question you can't do. Not, I know how to solve that first one, so I'm going to do it anyway. Maybe it's looking at that second question and going, I know dividing decimals I've struggled with. It's going to come up in paper one. Let me practice that. Or I know I can't solve simultaneous equations. Let me ask for help on this one. Can you do something on the morning of the exam to pick up an extra 1, 2, 3 marks? And I've got some final bits of advice, and it's advice we will have heard lots of times. Make sure you attempt every question. A blank space, an empty answer is 0 marks guaranteed. If you've written a first step, if you've done a calculation, it could be enough to get you a first mark. And sometimes once you've done a calculation, a second step will then appear, and that means you might have had 2 out of 4 rather than 0 out of 4 if you've written nothing. Always read the last line before you move on. If there's a question, is it asking you just for a number? Is it asking you to give your answer as a percentage or as a fraction or as a probability? Do you need to simplify your answer? All of these things are places where students can lose marks, even if they know what they're doing. Think about sensible answers. If you're doing a speed, distance, time question, is it reasonable for anything to travel 1,000 miles in 10 minutes? If we get that kind of answer, can we then break down and think, why is that not sensible? And use all of the time you're given. You're given 90 minutes. If you think you finished within the first 40 or 70 minutes, make sure you use that rest of that time to go back through that paper and do these things. Attempt every question. Read the last line and think about your sensible answers. Final thing for me to say, year 11, is good luck. Paper 1 is non-calculator. Make sure we're practicing those non-calculator skills and come tomorrow morning to school with questions that you haven't been able to answer the night before, and make sure you get help to get those extra 2, 3, 5 marks. Good luck.